Hey everyone, I'm Tara. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about the sacral chakra. So I'm going to give you the basics on what this energy center is all about and then give you 8 different ways that you can work on healing this energy center. So we're going through the chakras in like a series, and this is basically to help give you a deeper understanding of how your mind, your body, and your energy all interact and how they're connected. If you're totally new to the chakras, watch this video right here. This is going to give you a basic understanding on what the chakras are. I think the sacral chakra gets a lot of interest because it is known as the sex chakra. And while this is true to a point, there's much more to this energy center than just sex. So let's talk about it and see what this energy really entails. The sacral chakra is the second energy center of the chakra system. So the first is the root chakra, which we talked about in our last chakra video. I'll put a link to that in the description down below. So the sacral chakra is the next level up, and this energy center is located in our pelvic region, our lower abdomen, and our lower back. So it kind of encompasses that region. The sacral chakra's name in Sanskrit, so this is the language that the chakras originated from, is Svadhisthana. I share the Sanskrit name because this is the origins of the chakras, so I think it is important to remember where they originated. Svadhisthana, when you translate it into English, means her favorite standing place. This kind of gives you a hint that this energy center is very connected with our feminine energy. So remember, we all both have masculine and feminine energy regardless of gender. So this energy center is more about that feminine energy. The sacral chakra is part of the lower 3 chakras. What this means is it relates to how we interact with the physical world, the material world. If you watched the root chakra video, you'll know that lower doesn't mean less important. Our goal is really to create a balance of flow within them all. When the energy in your sacral chakra is balanced, you're able to express emotions, you're able to tap into your creative side, and we all have one, which we'll talk more about later in this video, and you're comfortable with your sexuality. The element associated with this energy center is water, which means it's a very fluid energy center. So it kind of likes to go with the flow. So first up, this energy center relates to emotions. And our emotions are very fluid like water. They do come and go. Emotions on their own only last 60 to 90 seconds. So it's really the mind that keeps you stuck in a specific emotion. Emotions really are meant to be or are naturally more fluid. So that's something you can remember when you're feeling stuck in a negative emotion, that naturally you're going to flow to a new emotion. And if you're feeling stuck in it, it's probably your mind keeping you there, which is not as easy to change as that sounds, but it's just a little tip for you or something you could think about. Next up, we have creativity, right? So the sacral chakra also has to do with creativity, and creativity is also fluid. We need to be able to flow with our ideas when we're in a creative state. And lastly, we have sex, and sex also has a fluid nature about it. So those are the 3 main aspects that have to do with the energy of the sacral chakra, and you can kind of see how they all relate back to the state of water and to being fluid. So the fluidity of this energy center helps us to tap into the fluid and ever-changing nature in life in general, right? Life is always changing and flowing. So we can use this energy center to help kind of embrace this. We're gonna talk about what an imbalance in the sacral chakra may look like, but first, number 1, remember that you don't have to have an imbalance to work on this energy. Taking the time to keep our energy flowing in a healthy manner through all the chakras is going to be beneficial for your overall well-being. And number 2, I just want you to remember this is looking deeper into our energetic connection to the mind and body. So while working with your energy can definitely create profound effects, it's not intended to replace medical treatment. So I'm just giving you examples of what relates to this energy center, but if you are experiencing physical, mental, emotional symptoms, issues, please consult with your doctor. So some things that might indicate that the sacral chakra's energy is not in a state of balance. This could be issues with the pelvic floor. This could be feeling a lack of creativity. It could be sexual issues. It could be lower back issues. It also relates to relationship issues, and this is going to be in terms of our intimate relationships. Doesn't mean you only have to be having sex with the person, but it's going to be that more intimate type relationship when you relate it back to the sacral chakra. If the energy here is blocked, it could also kind of relate to difficulty dealing with emotions, or just totally avoiding emotions, or just feeling an overall sense of rigidity and really not being able to go with the flow. So those are some examples of things that could indicate that the sacral chakra needs some work. Before we go over the tips, I just want to talk about the hips and emotions, because this is an important part when we're looking at the sacral chakra. So, as we know, the body and the mind are connected. So what's happening in your body is going to impact the mind. What's happening in the mind is going to impact the body. There seems to be a connection between stored, unreleased emotions and tight hips. I wanted to share with you a personal experience that relates to this topic, just to give you an idea of this relationship and share my story and see what you think. So I first learned about this relationship when I was doing my yoga teacher training. I learned basically that your hips can store unreleased emotions, and that some people may experience an emotional release when they're doing things like hip openers in a yoga practice. After learning this information, I don't know, I was having a conversation with my mom. I don't know what we were talking about, but I shared this with her, and she shared with me that this exact thing had happened to her in a yoga class a few years back. So she said she was doing pigeon pose. So it's kind of like this pose here. It's a pretty deep hip opener, and she felt her hip release and she was able to go deeper into the pose. And she said as soon as that happened, she felt a wave of emotions come over her and she started to cry. At the time, she had no idea why this happened. She thought it was super weird, she said. And after I shared this information with her, it made so much sense that her hips released and her emotions released. So it's not a research article on it, but it is an experience that I feel like it was unbiased because she didn't know it at the time and this happened. So it was kind of cool to hear her experience and kind of put that connection together. Okay, some themes to remember when working on the sacral chakra, and then we'll get into the tips. Life is an ever-shifting journey, and our response to change determines our experience. So we can be rigid and try to avoid change at all costs, or we could really tap into that surrender and surrender to the flow of life. And that doesn't mean we're not taking initiative, which we'll talk more about taking initiative in our next chakra video on the solar plexus. But with the sacral chakra, just simply being able to accept change and flow. There's such beauty in surrender and allowing yourself to just let go. It isn't always easy, but learning to tap into this really will open you up to new possibilities and growth. And finding balance in the sacral chakra and its energy is going to allow us to tap into this flow more easily. So let's talk about ways we can do this. So first up, we can work on hip mobility and hip flexibility. So as a little recap from what we talked about before, the sacral chakra relates to our emotions, and the hips store unreleased emotions. So hip openers are perfect for releasing any stuck energy in the sacral chakra. I'll link some guided yoga flows below that work on hip opening that would be good for this. If you've watched more of my training-based videos, you'll know that mobility is different than flexibility. But just so you know, in the case of working on the sacral chakra, working on either hip mobility or hip flexibility will work well to balance this energy. So you could do your classic hip stretches for this energy center, and that'll work well at bringing some balance here. Tip number 2 is to connect with water. Like we talked about, the element of the sacral chakra, I say chakra a lot, sometimes it's hard. The element here is water, so connecting with water is a really amazing way to balance the energy here. And we interact with water on a daily basis, but how often do we actually stop to mindfully connect with this element? There's so many ways you can connect with the element of water. You can actually go out and visit a body of water and mindfully observe it and kind of connect with water that way. You could take a mindful bath. One of my personal favorite ways to connect with water is creating like a mini ritual out of taking a shower, because this is something that we're doing anyway, so it's not like an added task that you need to like go visit a body of water or take a bath. You can connect with the water element right in the shower. If you're interested in this tip, I have a whole blog post on this topic, and it gives you ideas on how you can do this. I'll link it down below. So read that if you want to get into doing a little shower ritual. You can also connect with water by making it your main beverage of choice and just being mindful and offering it gratitude while you consume it. So instead of reaching for a drink that's filled with crap and sugar, just choose water. Tip number 3 is to tap into your creative side. So we talked about this earlier. I said we'd come back to it. We all have a creative side. You don't have to be artsy to be creative. That's a common misconception. Gardening, that's a form of creating. Putting together an outfit, that can be a creative process. Making this YouTube video, this is a creative process. There's so many different ways you could tap into your own creativity. If you happen to be artsy in the typical sense, then you could totally use that to tap into your sacral chakra's energy. But if you're like me and anything you draw looks like it was drawn by a 5-year-old, then you might want to think about other ways you enjoy expressing your creativity. A suggestion I can offer you that many of you are probably already doing is cooking. So we're often cooking and thinking of it as a boring job, or we're just trying to get food on the table, which I get, life gets busy, but maybe on the days where you do have a little extra time, can you tap into the creative aspect of putting a meal together? Even if you follow a recipe, you're still in creation mode. Something simple that makes me feel more creative when I'm cooking is just like using fresh herbs or something like that. That kind of helps me tap into feeling like it's more of a creative meal instead of just throwing something together. And the key here is to really attune your mindset to the fact that you're tapping into your creative side while cooking instead of just mindlessly going through the motions. Tip number 4 is to connect with the moon. The moon affects the tides of our water. Water is the element of the sacral chakra. The moon gives off feminine energy. The sacral chakra is a feminine energy. The sun is more masculine. Not for this video. You kind of get where I'm going with this. There are many, many ways you can work with the moon. That would be an entire video in itself, but I'll give you 2 simple ways that you can do this. So first is moon gazing. All that means is going outside on a clear night where you could see the moon and observing her in all her beauty. Unlike the sun, you can look directly at the moon, so this is kind of nice and an easy way to connect with the moon, so take advantage of this. The second option is to take time to meditate on the new and the full moon. Of course, you can meditate during any phase of the moon. This is a more simple way to start to connect with the moon and its kind of continuous, beautiful cycle that it has. I did some new moon rituals yesterday. It was a new moon in Cancer, which is the sign that's most connected with the moon, so it was really powerful. Connecting with the moon is really a powerful, beautiful ritual that you could do. Tip number 5 is to chant Vam. Each chakra has a sound that's associated with it called the Bija mantra. The mantra for the sacral chakra is Vam. So, simple, easy way to connect with this energy center is to chant Vam. So just Vam, Vam, Vam. Out loud, you can do it in your head, really tapping into your intuition and just saying it as many times as you feel like you need. Tip number 6 is to allow yourself to enjoy the pleasures of life. The energy of the sacral chakra reminds us that we deserve to experience pleasure in life, whether this be sexually or from material things. Pleasure isn't something we need to deprive ourselves of. Of course, this is in moderation. If we had sex all day, this energy center would become overactive and all of our other energy centers would suffer. So you can overdo this, but in general, you have the right to experience the pleasures in life. Again, this could be sexually, but it's not limited to sex. This could be enjoying the pleasure of experiencing tasty food, the pleasure of a hot, warm shower, the pleasure of experiencing a new place. Really, the options are endless. The tip here is to allow yourself to experience things that bring you joy and pleasure. Tip number 7 is to move your body in a fluid way. Finding fluidity in movement is another wonderful way to work with the energy of the sacral chakra. There's different ways you can do this. You could do this with an activity like dancing. This can also be experienced pretty easily in a yoga practice, particularly vinyasa type yoga. Vinyasa classes are usually pretty fluid in nature. And there's also certain ways you can kind of change up traditional yoga poses to use them to tap into your fluidity. My personal favorite is doing a fluid cat-cow. So basically, instead of just moving through a normal cat-cow like you would, you tap into your intuition, into what your body needs, and you move in whatever way you intuitively feel. So you could do small circles, large circles, move forward and backward, really just tuning into the fluidity of your body. I do have a yoga class that really taps into this fluid nature here on YouTube. I'll link it in the description down below for you. Tip number 8 is to wear orange. So each chakra has a color associated with it, and the color of the sacral chakra is orange. Basically, the chakras follow the colors of the rainbow. So like the colors of the rainbow get higher in frequency as you move up from red, so do the chakras. So the root chakra is the lowest frequency, red is the lowest frequency, red is associated with the root, so then you just kind of follow the rainbow as you move up the energy centers. This is another simple way you can connect with the sacral chakra. You could wear orange, you could surround yourself with orange objects. It's just basically reminding your body, your mind of your intention to balance the sacral chakra. So that's your basics on the sacral chakra and ways you can work on this energy center. This is a series I'm doing here on my YouTube channel, so we'll continue to go through the rest of the chakras, and then I'm doing yoga flows with each chakra. So there'll be a sacral chakra yoga flow that will be posted next week. If you guys liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button right below me, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.